Today on LA Currents, the Chicano moratorium is set to honor 50 years of life, loss, and a community's vision to inspire a new generation of activists. Next, we highlight a unique nonprofit that is driven to create an inclusive green economy. Let's get to know Lacey. But first, he's more than a politician. Secretary of State Alex Padilla is an engineer and a civil servant, tirelessly working to strengthen and protect your right to vote.
My dear friends, your vote is precious, almost sacred. It is the most powerful non-violent tool we have to create a more perfect union.
Democracy. Government by the people, exercised by elected agents under a free electoral system. It took 5 constitutional amendments and a Civil Rights Act to allow all of us the right to vote. My guest today cares very much that you do vote. I'm delighted to be joined by the California Secretary of State, Alex Padilla. Nice to have you with us.
Hi, Maria. Great to be home.
Yay! Welcome home. California, in fact, for this particular November election, was the first state to decide that every registered voter will, in fact, receive a ballot in the mail. So what are the safeguards that you have put into place to make sure that all of those votes are going to be safely and accurately counted?
Absolutely. First, I guess the big picture, as you mentioned, free and fair elections are the bedrock of our democracy. It's how we elect our representatives at all levels of government. In California, we're very familiar with propositions and ballot measures, so a lot of policy is decided at the ballot as well in every election, and so therefore the access to the ballot is important. So every election as we prepare, it's about accessibility for voters and as well as security. Especially in the last few years, we've heard of cyber threats and others to our elections. And now on top of all that, how do we prepare for a November election that's also safe from a health perspective, given the COVID-19 pandemic? So, soon after a very successful primary election of March of this year, prior to the COVID pandemic and declarations of emergency, we did make the decision that we should send every active registered voter a ballot in the mail in advance of the November election. For all the people who do receive a ballot in the mail in advance, they recognize they have options for how to return their ballot. Through the Postal Service, no stamps necessary, return postage is prepaid. Any voter can deliver their ballot to any secured ballot drop box in the county convenient to you in the weeks leading up to the election, or you can walk it in, drop it off in person at any in-person voting location. For people who prefer the in-person voting, we'll have in-person voting for at least 4 days, right? So voting won't just be on Tuesday, November 3rd. Early voting will start Saturday before the election. So you can vote Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday at any location in the county convenient to you. Now that in-person experience is also going to be a little different. Just like we can't go to the grocery store the same way anymore. Expect physical distancing and signage. Bring your mask. We'll have extra masks on hand for folks who forgot theirs. Think hand sanitizer, gloves, etc. All the public health measures to keep both voters and election workers safe. But that in-person is important to maintain, that in-person option to register to vote after the deadline and still cast their ballot, maybe replace their ballot if they lost it or made a mistake, if they need language assistance. And so it's not a vote by mail only election. We do have the options, but vote by mail will be the first recommended option.
There are already 5 states that are only vote by mail. So it's not as if this is a new procedure. Literally 5 states that have always just done vote by mail, but for a long time. And then in this particular election, 22 states have already joined the idea that every registered voter should have their ballot sent to them via the mail. So I'm not really understanding why it's become a drama in any way.
What's different this time is there's a whole lot of other states that are increasing vote by mail significantly for the first time. Right? States like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Arizona, and others, they've had vote by mail, but not to this scale. So if the presidential contest is a little too close to call in a lot of other key states, we may not know the outcome on election night as much as everybody wants to know immediately. If it's going to take a few days to get the final results, that's just the process at work. It's not the time to panic. It's not the time to worry. And it's certainly the time to not believe every conspiracy theory or lie about what's going on out there. Understand what the process is, and it's every legitimate ballot being counted, because that's respecting people's voting rights, and all the auditing procedures to protect the integrity of our elections. So we'd rather get it right than get it fast. For people who do have questions about vote by mail, because maybe they haven't done it before, they're not as familiar with it, there's a number of security provisions that we have to protect the integrity of vote by mail, starting with the ballots themselves. Right? Think our currency. Right, very specific paper types, watermarks, other distinguishing features to make it hard to counterfeit ballots and rig an election that way. The vote by mail return envelopes come with unique barcodes for every voter to help confirm the identity of the voter and the ballot that's being returned, ensuring that people don't vote more than once in a particular election. And here's the big one. That return envelope has a special designated area where the voter has to sign. And the first thing that county officials do when they receive those envelopes is compare the signature on that envelope with the signature on file as part of that voter registration record to ensure the match, confirming the identity of the voter. If the voter forgot to sign the envelope or the signatures don't match, then the county will attempt to contact that voter to rectify any issue that there is. So there's a lot of measures in place to protect the integrity of vote by mail in our elections more broadly, but given how much more we're going to rely on vote by mail, both in California and across the country, it's important for people to have that confidence. And here's the last biggest piece, a brand new tool for voters statewide called Where's My Ballot? It's a very technical name for our ballot tracking tool. Voters can go to vote.ca.gov for a number of voting resources and tools, including Where's My Ballot. You can subscribe to receive email messages, text messages, or automated phone messages on the status of your ballot as it's working its way through the Postal Service, both on its way to the voter and on its way back to the county. Maria, imagine getting an ultimate alert saying your ballot was received and your ballot was counted. It's great for transparency, great for accountability, and I think great for peace of mind and confidence in the system.
So you've discussed some of the safeguards in determining that the actual registered voter is the one that is voted. But what about the idea of perhaps undue influence within a home?
So, well, again, vote by mail is nothing new. So these concerns about what that vote by mail or vote at home experience looks like, we've been handling for decades. And if you look at potential issues of, undue influence, as you said, it's really not there. What is there is when people receive their ballots in the mail in advance of the election, there's more time for, brace yourself, civic dialogue.
There you go.
Right? Family members, friends, coworkers even, talking about what's on the ballot and how are you going to vote and why. Heaven forbid we have that time to inform ourselves and make a more informed decision as to who we vote for, what we vote yes on, what we vote no on, those sorts of things. So it's actually, I think, been helpful for people to benefit from that experience and finally not being rushed. Right? A lot of people who show up to vote on election day, the later you go, there's probably a longer line. And once you're in that booth, yes, it's absolutely private, but you feel like you have to hurry to get through that ballot. When you get your ballot at home, you can fill it out at your convenience, at your leisure. And as long as you make sure to postmark it on or before election day, your ballot's going to count.
So let's get down to the practicals, the timeline of how all this should play out.
All right. Well, first of all, for voter registration, the sooner the better. Go to vote.ca.gov and register to vote or update your registration. There's a official voter registration deadline that's 2 weeks before the election, but if you've missed that, you can still show up in person and update your registration or register to vote and still cast your ballot at any in-person voting location. For actual voting, remember, every active registered voter will receive their ballot in the mail in early October. Counties will send out those ballots no less than 29 days before the election. And LA voters have a great resource in the Los Angeles County Registrar Recorder. They can go to lavote.net and have a lot of information there as well. Make a plan on how you're going to vote, by mail or in person, and to vote early if you can. More people who vote early is less people that we have to assist on election day.
And bottom line, be patient for results.
be patient for results, nothing that we haven't seen in California before. We'll have a pretty good idea on election night, but give it a couple of weeks for final official results.
Well, Secretary Padilla, it's been really interesting, delightful, and wonderful to have an opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you, Maria.
So
don't forget to vote.
Believe me, there's nothing like all those little stickers you get to put. We have a huge mirror filled with stickers, so it's wonderful. All right, well, you be well, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you. Stay well.
The courage of the 20,000 Latinos who marched through East Los Angeles protesting the Vietnam War continues to be recognized today.
In 1970, Latinos were a mere 5% of the population. And yet at that time, they were 20% of the fatalities in Vietnam. As young Mexican Americans, we called ourselves Chicanos during that time period, with a great sense of identity and ethnic pride. And so that summer, many of us were involved in these efforts called the Chicano moratorium, the efforts of Chicanos to stop the war and to stop the over-presence of Chicanos as the fatalities of that war.
1970. ¿Por qué? Porque empieza mi identidad pública chicano y empieza la idea de una obligación a la comunidad, no solo a mí personal o a mi familia, pero también la responsabilidad de nosotros líderes tenemos para trabajar por la comunidad. Y esta idea, este valor empieza esta fecha del 29 de agosto de 1970.
Something like 7,000 Mexican Americans had died in Vietnam, and the boxes, aluminum boxes, were coming back to East LA, and we were saying, well, what's going on? Why are so many of us dying in Vietnam? And so we wanted to bring a stop to that, but also we wanted to bring a stop to the police brutality in East Los Angeles, and that's why we got involved to demonstrate, to voice our opinion. The demonstration is a poor man's press to express our grievances. And the moratorium itself on August 29, 1970, I would say to some degree was a showdown between the police and the community, because the police came and they tried to clear the park. They came in hitting people on the head, arresting people. I think 500 people were arrested. The people had no choice but to fight back. Turned into one riot, turned into three more riots, and it just continued on to this point where Ruben Salazar stopped here at the Silver Dollar at this location, and he was shot in the head by a tear gas projectile, which killed him.
So, I mean, we went from exuberance and excitement and, great unity and pride to then being attacked and being, fearful, scared, being, extremely conscious about things that were going on around us, watching the police, club people, looking at the tear gas, grenades, and trying to avoid them, trying to move people around so that they could be safe. And it was, it was chaotic. And, at some point, they overwhelmed the park, and I took off running right down the street. And then a car just pulled up on me and my friends. And fortunately, I was a pretty good athlete then, and I was able to just scale the fence and run into a house where people were opening up their doors for people to come in. And they served us, water and coffee and chocolate, and they shared their food with us. And everybody was talking about the Chicano movement and police brutality and all these things. And, mostly I listened because I was young and I was learning.
I was co-chairman of the Chicano Moratorium Committee and put it together. The Brown Berets is a civil rights organization to make sure that things can take place in regards to the protection of our community, in regards to our civil and cultural rights. So it's very important to bring back the cultural rights, especially in the schools, but also to bring back our civil rights in the streets so we are respected with dignity. I was with Ruben Salazar at the park when the riot took place. He was a lifetime reporter. He dedicated his whole life to writing stories about Chicanos and writing stories about La Raza. And he came out here to California and became a reporter and a prize-winning reporter for the Los Angeles Times.
To me, he's a hero. Those days, they were very racist. They were very, you know how it must have been. And he changed all that. He was our voice, and they took him away.
There's in many ways a voice for the changes that came, a person who could see it and then articulate it for our community. That kind of generational change that took place in the way we saw the world as Mexican Americans, and who saw that not were we only going to be focused on assimilation, but we were also going to protest, we were also going to speak out. And so it's a great loss to lose an incredible leader like that. And appropriately, there are parks and schools, libraries named after him, as they should be.
Ruben Salazar did not go in vain. I mean, as a result of what happened that day, it had impact on society, and it brought an end, helped to bring an end to the war in Vietnam, but it also started opening the doors in the colleges and universities, and also started opening jobs, started opening up in the city and the federal government and the state government.
There were so many great leaders who emerged from this, and we need to understand that we should be proud of what we had done as organized this incredible peaceful protest against the war. And also acknowledge many of the great figures who came from there. You know, Gloria Molina was here, Richard Alatorre, Esteban Torres. My mentors at the time, Antonio Hernandez, who was in college, Samuel Paz, Maria Elena Yepes, Luis Garza. There are just incredible people who were here, who went on to stay engaged and involved, and that we as a community need to continue to do that.
What happened over the years, over the 50 years, things have gone back, and we've lost a lot of the gains that we got in the past.
We need to be unified, we need to stay focused, we take advantage of our advantages. We have an ability to make peaceful change in this country in November, and we need it as urgent as can be. And we need to take advantage of the power of the vote for the interests of our community, for kids in cages, for 7,000 kids separated from their families, for people who are still being killed, shot by the police unnecessarily, for an opportunity to have a quality education. Those things still remain our goals, our hopes, and our aspirations, and we should continue to fight for that.
To save lives, it's important to have movement.
I used to be very, to myself conservative, but I still did activism. And it's changed me totally, like overnight. And I have a granddaughter that's a teacher, and she's going for Chicano studies. So I'm gonna give all my material that I have to her so she could teach it. Chicano power, everywhere and anywhere. That's never going away. And I don't want the youth, to have that diminish out of their lives, because that's very important. That's their identity.
It's very important to bring back the cultural rights, especially in the schools, but also to bring back our civil rights in the streets so we are respected with dignity.
We've learned that it's important for us to keep our eyes on the prize, to have a vision and stay focused. I think we see an expression, a manifestation of a desire for unity between communities, obviously with young people, the African American community, and young Latinos, young Chicanos. And I hope that we take from this event the lessons that we learned, and that is to be organized, to be unified, to register to vote, and to vote. We can make those changes. The power of the vote is an incredible, peaceful tool for social change in our country, and we need to use it. Hoy, el poder de Chicano es el voto. Nosotros tenemos una perspectiva más grande. Estamos, aceptan que en parte somos una comunidad, un pueblo inmigrante. También aceptan que tenemos una gran historia aquí de décadas, de muchos años, ¿no? Y nosotros estamos hoy con una perspectiva más grande, internacional, pero todavía tenemos los problemas de nuestra comunidad, en nuestras comunidades. Acceso a la educación, una batalla contra los abusos de la policía, ¿no? Y queremos, justicia por todos que viven aquí. These protesters and dreamers are going to be the future political, social, and cultural leaders of our community. So let's understand that and embrace that and applaud that. But remember, you're trying to make change and influence people. And that's not easy. That's a lifelong endeavor for many of us. And so be constructive, be positive, and be safe.
Meet the guy behind Lacey, the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. They're on a mission working towards solutions, and it all starts with clean air. Through the stay-at-home orders, Angelenos had remarkably clean air. An anomaly, perhaps, but if our next guest has any say in the matter, it will become a reality. I'm delighted to welcome to LA Occurrence Matthew Peterson, the CEO and president of the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, otherwise known as Lacey.
Yep.
We saw such clean air. Now, there were a number of factors involved, obviously. There was, the lack of traffic because people not going out. There was rain and there was wind. But Lacey has an initiative, Zero Emissions 2028, that will hopefully replicate that beautiful crystal clear air. So how is it going, and did we learn anything from the early part of the pandemic that you're utilizing?
I think so. LA is historically known for some of the worst air in the nation, and we still have the worst air in the nation. So when we were experiencing cleaner air, quieter streets, safer streets, people discovered the benefits of fewer cars on the road, better air quality, and quieter neighborhoods. We are really focused at Lacey with our transportation electrification partnership, which includes Mayor Garcetti, the County of Los Angeles, through Supervisor Hahn's leadership, to see how we can accelerate the move to zero emissions transportation. It would clean up the air to get those dirty diesel trucks replaced by zero emission trucks that come from the ports, and those residents that live along the I-710 corridor and other freeways suffer from the dirtiest air in the region and the nation. 15 states have joined with California on our clean car rule, and 5 major automakers have joined.
I was going to say, the automakers, despite whatever,
they're headed this way no matter what.
Right.
The folks in the White House can try to roll back rules and requirements, but the industry is headed this direction towards electric vehicles.
What are some of the other programs that Lacey participates in?
We're focused on 2 other areas, what we call unlocking innovation. How do we help entrepreneurs create the next killer app, so to speak, to help us solve the climate crisis? And it could be anything from making it easier for you or I to buy solar if we own a home, or buying compostable cups like Repurpose, one of our startups manufacturers, or one of our newer startups called Amply, making it easier for public fleets to charge their vehicles. One of the things we do in that work is also try to recruit diverse entrepreneurs, underrepresented founders of companies, women and people of color, black founders, brown founders. Those communities have a tougher time getting access to capital. That's just institutional barriers, bias, and so we're there to help them succeed in bringing their idea forth and get it funded and invested in.
Seems like electricity is at the cornerstone of so many of these green initiatives because of the fact that it's a clean source of energy.
Right. Yeah, I think as we're moving in California to 100% clean energy, including here in the city of Los Angeles with the Department of Water and Power moving in that direction, there's really a focus on the opportunity in reducing air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. And we're seeing extreme heat right now, and with extreme heat comes extreme drought, and with extreme heat and extreme drought, we get fires. What do we do to take responsibility for reducing those emissions while making our communities more livable? The solution that electricity provides as we move to more and more renewable energy from solar, wind, and geothermal is a clean source of fuel, not just to power buildings and put the lights on, which get increasingly efficient from LEDs and other technologies. It's also the fuel that can go into our vehicles. That is really the future. Now we're seeing more and more electric vehicle startups in the LA region Canoe is one down in Torrance, another is Fisker Automotive. There are many more in the LA area. They're creating jobs here. They're creating innovation, and those vehicles are all powered by electricity. And electricity is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. So those are the kinds of solutions that we're working on with our startups, with our corporate and government partners, as well as with our workforce training.
Now, needless to say, this is to benefit Los Angeles as a city, et cetera. And Los Angeles is very innovative in and of itself. I mean, the West is, incredibly creative from, top to bottom. But where do you look to see, other places that might be moving in a direction that you can, steal little ideas or get inspired by their ideas? So where are you looking? Because I know that you have a very broad perspective, even before you came to Lacey.
Well, we look all sorts of places. I mean, LA is probably one of the most innovative regions. I mean, Mayor Garcetti and the City Council, led by Nuri Martinez, and the support of Housing Chair Gil Cedillo, who approves all their community development funding that we get. Other members of the council like Paul Koretz or Paul Krikorian, the list goes on. We get ideas from them sometimes, and that's some of the exciting. The mayor's office or council offices will send us, hey, we got to ask about this technology. Remember that mug made from paper? We got to ask if it's something the city should buy, and would you take a look at it? So we get a little bit of that. So we get some homegrown, lead generation, if you will, to look at. But we also go and scout ideas nationally. So when we want to learn from innovations, we'll look, whether it's the Bay Area, New York, sometimes further afield, in places like Paris, or the circular economy. How do we recycle that ceramic mug made from paper, and the chemistry that's involved? How can you do something with it afterwards so that we just don't end up with more trash in the landfill that, there is no more way. We don't have any more places to throw our stuff forever. Really looking at all those factors to find innovation, and sometimes it's introduction. Sometimes the people, they self-select and apply for our programs, but you've always got to be scouting and looking for ideas and entrepreneurs to keep the innovation coming.
So if somebody wants information about Lacey or wants to get involved with Lacey, I mean, should there be is there a pause in terms of just sort of waiting for things to open up more?
We've been recruiting for our Founders Business Accelerator right now, which we're in the middle of our latest workforce training program, which is both virtually and in person with social distance measures outside, of course, when we're doing our trainings in the field. We'll be doing the same with our Founders Business Accelerator, which is the small business program. We would invite any small business in the city of LA to go to laci.org and apply for that. It's laci.org. And then we'll be going out for applications for our core incubation program soon too. So there's a number of ways people can get engaged now. They don't have to wait for the COVID crisis to pass for free immunization to happen, or antibodies to take hold. We can't hold our breath forever. We need to continue the work, and we have been and will, and we're excited about people joining us on that journey.
I've had the opportunity on several days, this is anecdotal by the way, but to chat with some young Angelenos, and how they're feeling about what's happening. And one of them said something that I thought was really profound, that this is the most entrepreneurial generation that is coming out. Are you noticing that? Are you feeling that too? That there is an entire new Verve from millennials and younger, that they are entrepreneurial, that they want to take it into their own hands?
Absolutely, and I say, I think it's the traditional for-profit entrepreneurial spirit, but also the social entrepreneurial spirit of really taking responsibility for changing our communities and taking the future by the horns, if you will, and shaping that future. I mean, history is not preordained. We can guide it and direct it. And that was what I saw when I marched with my son during the Black Lives Matter protest with 50,000 people out in the streets of Hollywood. There were no cops on the street. There was no clear leaders. It was self-organized, led by youth, inspired by youth, guided by youth. And it was beautiful. It was amazing. And then we know we need to deal with racial injustice and climate justice together without dealing with both. we're just going to create deeper rooted problems for future generations to address. So this generation is standing up and taking responsibility and challenging leaders to do the same. And I'm inspired by that, and it gives me great hope.
Well, it was really great to talk to you. Thank you
Great
so
to
much,
talk with
Matt.
you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Best
for
of
having me.
everything, of course.
Same to you.